In my son's pickup, his phone auto-connected to Bluetooth. My daughter-in-law's voice came over the speaker. When he's gone, everything falls to us, so why wait? Push him to sign now. I just smiled. They whispered about my end. I handed them their ending instead. I didn't talk for 2 miles. Then I told my son Mark to pull into Miller's Diner, the place with the neon coffee cup and the pie board that tells you the day better than a calendar. It was Thursday, 7:42 p.m., printed right there under banana cream. Inside, I set a credit union envelope, 3 statements, and my yellow pad on the Formica. Before the meatloaf, I said we're going to count. He tried a grin. Dad, you misheard Bluetooth glitches. I didn't mishear, agreed, I said. Let's do the math. The whispers had started months earlier, not from people, but from numbers. March, a $42.17 charge at a gas station across town, 2:13 a.m. April, the city water bill jumped 18%, then 22% in May, though I live alone and microwave my oatmeal. The Midwest Energy app showed blue bars peaking near midnight, while I'm lights out at 10:11:27 p.m., 12:03 a.m., 12:49 a.m., like someone was running laundry in a house where nobody was awake. Saturday before last, the ATM at Lakeshore Credit Union logged a balance check at 5:05 a.m. I was home with the ball game on low. Tuesday at 2:41 a.m., a $5 micro deposit tried to add a new payee in bill pay. It failed, but it tried. At Kroger, my Visa got declined at $26.83. Numbers don't panic, they point. I didn't chase theories, I wrote dates. 3:14 gas, 2:13 a.m., 04:28 water up 18%, 05:26 water up 22%, 06:03 Visa decline, $26.83 at Kroger, 06:10, 4:06 p.m. text to add a device, 6:11 2:41 a.m. failed micro deposit. I drew arrows on a yellow pad and realized the pattern wasn't random or kind. Bev topped our mugs like she's done since '94 and drifted away when she felt the air change. I changed my PIN, I said, froze my credit, added 2-factor to my email, asked Mary Ellis at Lakeshore to be my trusted contact, called an attorney Gonzalez on Adams Street. I'm old, not helpless. Mark's phone buzzed. He turned it face down. We're just trying to simplify, Dad. Downsize, stairs, gutters. It's safer if we help. Care is with, I said, control is over. He looked at the paper stack, then back at me. Lydia talks too fast. She didn't mean. Quote, I said slowly. When he's gone, everything falls to us, so why wait? Push him to sign now. End quote. He swallowed. Silence sat down in the booth across from us. I slid an envelope with a county seal just far enough for him to see the embossing. I recorded something on June 1st, I said. A line that makes the house hard to steal. We can read it together with my lawyer, not in a living room. Bev came with 2 plates. We ate because forks keep hands civil. When the check came, I put down cash. Walk with me next door, I said. Lakeshore Credit Union was still lit. Mary waved us into her glass office where a plant leans toward the only decent sun. Evening, Mr. Whitaker, she said. Mark. She pulled up my profile. What can I do? Tell me if anyone has tried to change my phone number or add a device, I said. Plain words. Keys clicked. June 10, 4th, 06 p.m. Text verification sent to a new device approved. She looked up. Was that you? No, I said. At 4:06, I was at the VA clinic refilling metformin. She typed a note that sounded like a lock engaging. We'll set in branch only for profile changes. Add a verbal password for phone calls. Want a word? January, I said, so I remember winter's end. Done, she said. I'll print the log. I turned to Mark. You hear that, in branch only. Password in place. He stood with his hands in his jacket pockets, a look I remember from Little League when he realized the pitch was already past him. We stepped outside. The air smelled like cut grass and hot brakes from County Road 12. The Jeep plant horn bleated in the distance for shift change. We didn't say much walking back to the truck. At home, I clicked on my porch light and sat. The cul-de-sac settled, a sprinkler hissed, a screen door clapped, a raccoon waddled under the maple. I opened my notebook and wrote 7:42 p.m. Bluetooth. Heard it plain. 8:10. Mary 4:06 p.m. Text in branch only January. I underlined plain twice and closed the book like a lid on a box. Sleep came easy. Locks were where they should be. Morning brought the trash truck hiss at 7:06, and the habit I've had since '94, half-cup oats, pinch of salt, 210 in the microwave. I set my coffee on the yellow pad and wrote a short list in block, letters, and numbers, the way a man calms himself with verbs. Gonzalez Navarrete, County Clerk Certified Copy. Utilities print hourly charts. Voicemail save and backup. Pastor Jim witness. Then I stood in the doorway and looked at my small, ordinary house. The porch light was still on from last night, soft and steady. I left it that way. A light is not a siren. It's a boundary and a welcome all at once. Tomorrow I'd bring my papers to Gonzalez and put every guardrail in writing trust deed passwords so help stayed, help not ownership. And if anyone wanted signatures, they could meet us in daylight across a desk with witnesses and coffee, not as whispers through a truck speaker. I was at Attorney Gonzalez's office at 9:28 a.m., 2 minutes early because early is cheaper than court. His place sits over a shoe repair on Adams Street next to the barber with the spinning pole. The bell jingled when I opened the door. It smelled like leather polish and coffee. Tell me the facts, he said. I set down my stack credit union printouts utility charts with midnight peaks, the yellow pad with dates and arrows. I told him about the Bluetooth slip in my son's truck at 7:42 p.m., the 4:06 p.m. text verification, while I was at the VA clinic, the 2:41 a.m., failed micro deposit, the 5:05 a.m. ATM balance check. No drama, just times. You already did the right triage, he said. Credit freeze, two-factor trusted contact. Now we add rails that bite. He drew a short map on a legal pad. House keep you in full control. Confirm your transfer on death deed is recorded. Trust simple, revocable trust. You as trustee. Successor trustees, not your son, pick two steady people. Bank in branch changes only. Verbal password. Letter on file that counsel must be present for any POA talk. Comms poured out PIN at the phone carrier. USPS informed delivery plus verify in-person note. Evidence keep the charts logs and any voicemail. Patterns win. For successors, he said, tapping his pen who won't flinch. Mary Ellis at Lakeshore, I said. Pastor Jim. He smiled, numbers and backbone. Good pair. He slid over a one-page card. If anyone brings papers, hand them this, I'm represented. Contact counsel. Read everything out loud. If they say it's standard, ask standard for who. If they press, say, tomorrow with my lawyer. Pushers hate tomorrow. We reviewed the house. I showed him the county seal I'd recorded on June 3rd. He nodded. That plus the trust will keep hands out while you're alive. We'll sign Monday at 10 or 0 a.m. Bring ID. We'll notarize a trust certification. No need to show the whole book to every clerk. By 10:22 a.m. we had a list. He handed me 2 business cards, one for my wallet, one for whoever needed a boundary. I put his letter behind my driver's license. At 10:40, I walked 2 blocks to the county clerk and took a number A093. The board clicked A092, then mine. 5 minutes later, I had a certified copy of the recorded deed. The raised seal caught light like fish scales. I slid it into a thin folder labeled House. At 11:15, I stopped at the post office on Monroe. Informed delivery, I told the clerk. And please flag my address for in-person verification. He typed with 2 fingers and said, honest, we can't block everything, but we can slow the dumb stuff. You'll get a letter if someone tries to forward. I bought a locking mailbox and a roll of flag stamps. At 12:05, I ate a quick tuna melt at Miller's and circled my to-dos on the yellow pad phone carrier, pin print logs, backup voicemail, call pastor. I don't multitask, I sequence. At 1:10, I drove to my carrier store and added a 6-digit poured-out PIN. The clerk said you'd be surprised, and I said I'm trying not to be. At 1:48, I was at Lakeshore. Mary printed the log that shows June 10, 4:06 p.m. text verification, sent to new device approved, and June 11, 2:41 a.m. failed micro deposit. She stamped the copy and slid it across. We also have your in-branch only note and your password, she said. Don't say it here. January, I said and smiled so she'd know I remembered. At 2:20, I sat at my kitchen table and made folders, like a man sorting nuts and bolts, bank utilities, house phone, voicemail. I moved the voicemail from my phone to a small silver thumb drive and labeled it with blue painter's tape, Lydia, 3:22 p.m. I printed the energy charts 30 days, the midnight bars circled in red, and clipped them square. I took a photo of the new locking mailbox mounted straight because pictures keep stories honest. At 3:05 p.m., I called Pastor Jim. Do you eat pot roast, I asked. Depends on who's cooking, he said. We're about to find out, I said. Could you be a friend in the room at 7 tonight? No speeches, just presence. I can do presence, he said. I'll bring a notebook and my quiet. At 3:22 p.m., my phone buzzed. Mark dinner at 7. Lydia made pot roast. We can go over some simple paperwork. A winking emoji after simple. I'll bring dessert, I texted. Lemon pound cake comforts people. It also buys time. At 4:10, I installed the locking mailbox. At 4:45, I backed the voicemail to the thumb drive again, and then to my laptop, then wrote, backed up on the tape because belts and suspenders beat regrets. At 5:15, I drove to the bakery on Lewis and bought the cake. At 5:42, I put everything into a canvas grocery bag, Gonzalez's card and letter the deed copy, with the raised seal, Mary's stamped log, the energy charts with red circles, the thumb drive in a sandwich bag, a pen that works. At 6:10, I called Mary. If I call you on speaker at Miller's or elsewhere, I ask, can you confirm basic security notes, no balances? Just in-branch only and the log times. I can say what the log shows, she said. Plain words. That's the language we're speaking, I said. At 6:30, I sat on my porch, light on bag by my feet, and let the street settle. I don't rehearse speeches, I rehearse steps. If they push papers, read out loud, no signing hand over Gonzalez's card. If they say standard for who, if they rush tomorrow with my lawyer. If my voice shakes, sip water, breathe return to dates. People can argue feelings. They trip over timestamps. At 6:52, I drove the 5 minutes to their subdivision. Plastic runner down the hallway, I guessed. A folder on the table, I guessed right. I rang at 7:00. Lydia opened fast, bright voice, a half note higher than her normal. Dad, perfect timing. Mark hovered behind her, smile thin. Pastor Jim arrived at 7:03, church logo polo spiral notebook. He shook hands like we were at a school board meeting and set his pen on the table like a boundary line. Lydia set a navy folder by my plate. A sticky note on top said simple and standard in cheerful handwriting. Before we eat, she said, 5 minutes of paperwork, just in case. I set the cake down. Then let's read in plain English, I said. I slid the folder toward me and lifted the top page, durable power of attorney effective, immediately. I didn't look up. I kept reading real property transactions, banking transactions, gift transactions, including gifts to the attorney, in fact, not exceeding the annual exclusion. Nomination of guardian in event of incapacity. Mark's fork didn't move. Pastor Jim wrote one word I could read upside down, heard. Standard language, Lydia said quickly. Our neighbor signed one. Standard for who, I asked. Before she could answer, small feet pattered down the hall. Evan popped around the corner with a blue marker mustache. He climbed into the empty chair and announced, Mommy says, when you're gone, we get your house, and Daddy can build a big garage. Are you gone yet? The kitchen clock ticked once. Lydia's smile stuck like a label. Not tonight, buddy, I said. We're having cake first. I turned the navy folder closed, laid Gonzalez's card on top, and set my hand flat on it like you do on a map when you found north. 5 minutes is never enough for effective immediately, I said. If you want me to sign anything, we'll do it tomorrow with my lawyer, or we won't do it. Sunday at 5:22 p.m., I parked behind Miller's Diner by the dented cart corral. Pastor Jim slid into the back booth with me at 5:31, spiral notebook down, quiet face on. The neon coffee cup over the pie board flickered like it always does, enough light to see what you're doing. At 5:28, Mark and Lydia walked in with a man carrying a leather notary case. Lydia wore her let's be efficient smile. This is Mr. Harlan, she said. Mobile notary, super convenient. He nodded. Evening. I'm commissioned in Lucas County. Bev poured waters without being asked. Meatloaf, she said. Later, I said. We've got 5 minutes of facts first. Lydia set the navy folder on the formica. A sticky note on top read simple and standard in her tidy hand. Just sign where flagged, she said. Then we can eat. Before we sign anything, I said we're going to read out loud and line it up with real life. At 5:36 p.m., my phone alarm buzzed, call Mary speaker. I tapped it, dialed Lakeshore Credit Union, said the verbal password January, and asked for Mary Ellis. She picked up on the second ring. Hi, Mary, I said. You're on speaker at Miller's Diner. My son, my daughter-in-law, a notary, and Pastor Jim are here. Would you state my security settings and the log entries from June 10th and 11 in plain words? In-branch only for profile changes, she said. Verbal password required by phone. June 10th at 4:06 p.m. Text verification sent to a new device approved. June 11 at 2:41 a.m. A failed micro deposit to add a bill pay recipient. We've mailed you copies. Was the 4:06 p.m. approval me, I asked. You told me it wasn't, she said. We locked it down. Thanks, Mary. Tell Bev I like banana cream, she said and hung up. Lydia's voice tightened. Okay, theater's over, she said. Let's just sign the POA so we can help you properly. I opened the folder and read the title out loud. Durable power of attorney effective immediately. Then the powers: real property transactions, banking transactions, gift transactions, including gifts to the attorney in fact not exceeding the annual exclusion. I set that page down and lifted the next nomination of guardian. Standard language, Lydia said quickly. Everybody signs this. Hazel on our block did. Standard for who, I asked. People who already have my keys? Mr. Harlan unclipped his stamp. Sir, I'll need ID, he said, and I need to confirm you're willing. You'll hear my answer after one more piece, I said. I pulled a small silver thumb drive from a sandwich bag, plugged it into my phone, and hit play. Lydia's voice filled the booth and the one behind us where two Jeep plant guys were sharing a club sandwich. Hey, did you get the text code? Just add your dad's second number so Mary won't call. Do it before 5. She leaves at 8, but she stops looking after 5. No one moved. Pastor Jim wrote one word in his notebook, voicemail. Bev stopped at the end of the booth with the coffee pot held like a baton. I let the silence do what it's built for. Then I said, Level, that message is saved. Attorney Gonzalez has a copy. Mary's logs match the times you referenced. The energy charts show midnight spikes when I'm in bed. Together it reads like a plan. Plans don't do well in daylight. Lydia stared at the sugar caddy. You're twisting it, she said, voice thinner now. We were just trying to keep things smooth so the bank wouldn't. The bank's job is to call, I said. You tried to keep it from calling. Mr. Harlan closed his stamp case. I can't notarize if the signer isn't willing, he said, or if I have doubts about pressure. He set the stamp on the table like a lid on a hot pan. I'll step outside. Please don't, Lydia said too fast. It's just acknowledgement. That's not what acknowledgement is, he said, and walked toward the door. Mark rubbed his forehead. Dad, he started, we're behind on the second car. The boat was dumb. We thought if we could help with bills. You can fix your math, I said. I won't fix it for you by breaking mine. Pastor Jim looked at me, then at them. Truth behaves well in company, he said softly. Here are my lines, I said, sliding Gonzalez's business card onto the folder. I don't sign effective immediately documents in a diner. If you want me to sign anything, my lawyer reads it first tomorrow at 10:00 a.m. across a desk with a witness. If you want to help shovel when it snows, drive me to the VA and ice change the smoke detector batteries in October. If you want control, you won't be getting it. Lydia's jaw tightened. We can contest, she said. You mix up dates. I tapped the yellow pad I'd brought. June 10, 4:06 p.m., text to new device. June 11, 2:41 a.m., failed micro deposit. Thursday, 7:42 p.m. Your Bluetooth remark. I don't mix up dates. I write them. One of the Jeep guys, gray at the temples, Union jacket, paused at our booth. Sir, he said to me, we did a trust for my mom last year. Best thing we did. Guardrails save families. He nodded at Mark, a neighbor, teaching without scolding. Don't push a pen. Push a shovel. Bev poured coffee into my mug and without asking into Pastor Jim's. Banana cream is on me tonight, she said to Mary's future. We ate late. Meatloaf after the adrenaline tastes like church basement food. Warm, simple, forgiving. No speeches. When the check came, I put cash on the table and wrote a number on the back of the receipt for Mark Consumer Credit Counseling, Monroe Ave. I circled it once. Tomorrow, 10:00 a.m., Gonzalez's office, I said. If you want to hear what a plain English trust does, come listen. No folders, no stamps. Mark nodded, eyes glassed the way they get when the truth lands, but pride hasn't made room yet. I'll come, he said. We'll come. Lydia didn't speak. She stared at the Navy folder like it had betrayed her. Then she slid it back into her tote and zipped it shut like a door she'd try again later. At 6:43 p.m., we stood. Pastor Jim shook Mr. Harlan's hand on the sidewalk. Thanks for closing the stamp, he said. Stamps are for willingness, not momentum, the notary said. Most people forget that. He tucked the case under his arm and headed for his sedan. I asked Bev for a to-go slice. She wrote for Mary on a sticky note and stuck it to the lid. Tell her I said behave, she said. Banks need sugar too. Outside, the air had dropped from sticky to warm. The Jeep plant siren whooped the shift change, and the red line of taillights drifted down County Road 12 like beads on a string. Pastor Jim and I stood by the cart corral for a minute, not saying much the way men do when the important part is over and the work part begins. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm older than their patience," I said, "but steadier than their plan." He smiled at that and tapped his notebook. "I wrote steadier than their plan," he said. "Steal it back from me when you use it again." At 7:12 p.m., I set the boxed pie on Lakeshore's night drop for Mary. At 7:18, I turned onto my street. I clicked the porch light on at 7:19 and left it. I don't use it like a lighthouse. I use it like a promise. Inside, I wrote the facts where they belong. 5:36, Mary on speaker, in branch only. 4:06 text, 2:41 micro deposit. Voicemail played, notary declined. Boundary stated, Monday 10:00 Gonzalez. I underlined decline once, boundaries twice. Then I rinsed my cup and made a small list for morning trust signing, safe deposit box, phone carrier, pin check, postal flag, print extra copies, belts and suspenders, locks and lights, people and paper. I slept without listening for the door. Numbers had finally started doing what I needed them to do, standing between me and other people's plans. Monday started with the trash truck hiss at 7:06 a.m. I wrote one line at the top of my yellow pad, Monday Trust Tenorzurum, and locked the door twice without thinking. I parked on Adams at 9:54, 2 doors down from the barber with the spinning pole. Gonzalez buzzed me in at 9:58. His office smells like leather polish and strong coffee, the scent of work, not decor. "Facts first," he said. I handed him the stacked credit union logs, utility charts with midnight spikes, my yellow pad of dates. I told him the Bluetooth moment at 7:42 p.m., the 4:06 p.m. text, to add a device while I was at the VA pharmacy, the 2:41 a.m., failed micro deposit, the 5:05 a.m. ATM balance check. No speeches, just times. "You did good triage," he said. "Now we add rails that bite." He made a short map. "House, you stay in full control. Confirm the transfer on death deed is recorded. Trust revocable, you as trustee. Successor trustees, not your son, pick 2 steady people. Bank in branch only for profile changes. Verbal password. A letter that counsel must be present for any POA talk. Comms poured out pin at the phone carrier. USPS informed delivery with a verify in-person note. Evidence, keep the charts, logs, and any voicemail. Patterns win." For successors, he asked. "Mary Ellis at Lakeshore," I said. "And Pastor Jim." "Numbers and backbone," he said. "Perfect." At 10:07, we signed trust documents, a certification for showing to banks, and his "I'm represented contact counsel" letter. His paralegal Nina notarized with a clean thunk that felt like a gavel scaled for paper. At 10:14, we were done. "Keep the big book at home," he said, sliding me the 1-page certification. "Clerks don't need your life story, just proof you're the trustee." I drove to the county building, took number A093, and by 10:31 held a certified copy of the recorded deed, raised seal catching light like fish scales. That went into a slim folder labeled House. Lakeshore Credit Union at 10:44. I set a bakery box on Mary's counter. "For you later," and sat in her glass office while we opened a small safe deposit box. B17. We slid in the trust certification, the deed copy with the raised seal, my list of accounts numbers masked, and a small silver thumb drive labeled in blue tape, Lydia 3:22 p.m. Mary handed me 2 keys on a brass tag stamped "Do not duplicate." "One on your ring," she said. "One somewhere you'll remember." "Top desk drawer taped blue," I said. "We're hosting fraud prevention night tomorrow, 5:30 p.m., she added. "Sheriff's community liaison, our branch notary, Q&A. Coffee and cookies. You might like it." "Put me down," I said. "Truth seems to like your lobby." At 11:15, I stopped at the post office on Monroe. "Informed delivery," I told the clerk. "Please flag my address for in-person verification." He typed with 2 fingers. "We can't stop everything," he said, honest, "but we can slow the dumb stuff. You'll get a letter if someone tries to forward." I bought a locking mailbox and a roll of flag stamps. Noon found me at Miller's with a tuna melt and my pad. I circled 5 line items: phone carrier, pin print, extra logs, backup, voicemail install, mailbox fraud, night 5:30. At 1:10, the phone carrier store added a 6-digit poured out pin to my line. The clerk said, "You'd be surprised," and I said, "I'm trying not to be." At 1:48, Mary printed and stamped the June 10-11 log again, so I'd have a clean copy to carry. June 10, 4:06 p.m. text to new device approved. June 11, 2:41 a.m. failed micro deposit. She wrote in branch only across the top in red and slid it back. Say your password, she said. January, I said, and the muscle memory felt good. At 2:20, I sat at my kitchen table and made 5 folders like a man sorting bolts, bank, utilities, house phone, voicemail. I copied the voicemail to the thumb drive again and to my laptop. I wrote backed up on the blue tape because belts and suspenders beat regret. I printed 30 days of energy charts, the midnight bars circled in red, and clipped them square. I took a picture of the new locking mailbox once I'd mounted it straight. Pictures keep stories honest. At 3:34 p.m., Evan burst in with sock feet and a dinosaur backpack. We built a Lego Jeep with 6 wheels because 5-year-old math is optimistic. He found my porch switch and flipped it twice. That light helps people find home, I told him. He nodded like I'd shared a secret. Cake next time, he whispered. Peels first, I said. Cake after. Lydia's here text buzzed at 4:28. Evan hugged me sticky and galloped out. At 5:02, I checked the Midwest Energy portal. The midnight spikes had already dipped since Friday. Locks and lights change behavior faster than lectures do. Pastor Jim called at 6:20. Tomorrow 5:30, he said. I'll bring my polite face. And your notebook, I said. Tuesday rolled in clean. By 9:10, I had the mailbox mounted for real, the screws biting fresh wood. At 10:00, Nina emailed the trust certification PDF. I forwarded it to Mary with the subject line for file Mr. Whitaker, trust cert. At 1:22, Mary confirmed the notary would be at a folding table by the coffee urn. Sheriff's liaison is bringing a slide about SIM swaps and never share a code, she added. At 3:30, Mark texted, can we come tonight? Then right after, we'll sit in back. I typed 4 chairs from the back, under the poster with the big arrows. It felt good to give a precise place to stand. At 5:08 p.m., I put on my good flannel and drove to Lakeshore. The lobby smelled like copier ozone and lemon cleaner. A sandwich board read, Fraud Prevention, Night Free and Open. The sheriff's liaison in a blue polo pinned up a poster with arrows from text code to new device. The branch notary, Mr. Klein, set his stamp on a card table by the coffee. Mary stacked handouts, in-branch only, verbal password, trusted contact, safe deposit basics. Sugar cookies went on a tray with red sprinkles that looked like they'd been poured by a kid. Pastor Jim took the chair beside me at 5:29. He wrote the date at the top of a clean page and underlined it once. Mark and Lydia slipped in at 5:26 and sat 2 rows ahead. Evan's dinosaur backpack slumped at their feet like a small creature asleep. At 5:33, Mary welcomed everyone. We see a lot, she said, voice steady. Sometimes it's strangers. Sometimes it's people who love you but are scared and do foolish things. Tonight is for learning, not shaming. The sheriff's liaison clicked through slides, codes, SIM swaps, micro deposits at 2:41 a.m., rush signatures, mobile notaries at kitchen tables. Heads nodded like wheat. Then Mary said, questions are welcome. Stories help the room. I looked at the clock so my words would have a place to sit. 5:41 p.m. I felt my hand rise like it knew the job. I raised my hand. Mary nodded like we'd rehearsed. Go ahead, Mr. Whitaker. I'll stick to dates and times, I said, watching the wall clock, so my words had a place to sit. March 14th, 2:13 a.m., $42.17 gas charge across town. April and May, water bill up 18%, then 22%, though I live alone. June 10, 4:06 p.m. Text verification sent to add a device on my Lakeshore profile while I was at the VA pharmacy. June 11, 2:41 a.m., failed micro deposit to add a new payee. All month midnight power spikes on Midwest Energy, though I'm lights out at 10. And last Thursday at 7:42 p.m. in my son's pickup, his phone auto-paired to Bluetooth, and I heard my daughter-in-law say, when he's gone, everything falls to us, so why wait? Push him to sign now. A small sound moved through the lobby, the one people make when a chair almost tips. At 5:45, I said, tapping my phone, I'm going to play a voicemail I saved. I plugged in a silver thumb drive and set my phone on the coupon table by the coffee urn so it felt ordinary. I hit play. Lydia's voice came out clean and bright. Hey, did you get the text code? Just add your dad's second number so Mary won't call. Do it before 5. She leaves at 8, but she stops looking after 5. Pens froze. The sheriff's liaison, a woman in a blue polo with a badge stitched on, pulled one from behind her ear and wrote 3 words in a neat box code, add before 5. At 5:47, I said Mary will say whether her logs match those times. I looked at her. They do, Mary said, steady, not unkind. June 10, 4:06 p.m., text to a new device approved. June 11, 2:41 a.m., failed micro deposit. We placed in branch only on Mr. Whitaker's profile and a verbal password. We can certify copies. The sheriff's liaison stepped forward for the room, not to turn us into a show. That pattern, rushing signatures, bringing a notary, like a tow truck adding a number with a text code so the bank won't call, fits undue influence headed toward exploitation. If you feel pushed, press the brakes. Call someone who isn't doing the pushing, your bank, your lawyer, or us. She lifted a brochure. This number rings a real person. The branch notary, Mr. Klein, lifted his stamped journal. Sir, he said to me, if you want to swear to a short statement with your dates and that you played that voicemail here tonight, I can notarize your signature. I can't notarize the recording, but I can notarize your affidavit. I'd like that, I said. Plain words, short lines. We moved to the card table by the copier. He wrote the title by hand, affidavit of dates and voicemail playback. He printed I, Harold Whitaker, State 1 on 6/10 at 4:06 p.m. A text to add a device appeared on my Lakeshore profile while I was at the VA clinic. 2 on 6/11 at 2:41 a.m., a failed micro deposit attempt appeared. 3 on today's date at 5:45 p.m. at Lakeshore Credit Union, I played a voicemail from full name with the following content. He left a blank. I wrote out the words as the phone transcribed them. He had me sign. The stamp thunked the page with a clean raised seal. The room exhaled. A few people clapped the way folks clap when a pulse shows up. Mark's voice came from 2 rows back, small but honest. Dad, I'm sorry, he said, standing without quite standing. We were scared. I make dumb choices when I'm scared. The boat, the second car. We thought if we could help with your bills, we could catch up. You can fix your math, I said. I can't fix it for you by breaking mine. I kept my hands flat on the table. If you want help, I'll drive you to Consumer Credit Counseling on Monroe, sit in the lobby and bring granola bars. I won't bring my checkbook. Lydia stared at the coffee stirrers like they might rescue her. You didn't have to humiliate us, she said, but her eyes slid to the sheriff's brochure. I'm not here to humiliate you, I said. I'm here to stop a plan before it turns into a case number. Care is with, control is over. You're always welcome on my porch. You're not welcome on my accounts. Mary stepped beside me so the words didn't land alone. For anyone here, she told the room, we can add notes today, in branch only. Verbal passwords, trusted contacts. We can open a safe deposit box and show you how to use it. None of that means you don't love your kids. It means you're a good steward. A woman near the back lifted a hand. My nephew did the code things, she said. I told him he could come back when he wasn't crying about my money. He came back a month later with a job application. We made chili. People let out the laugh with salt in it. Mr. Klein slid my affidavit into a clear sleeve and wrote the time in the corner, 5:51 p.m. He handed it to me like a receipt from a hard purchase. The sheriff's liaison pointed to the slide behind her. Never share a code that arrives by text, and a few heads nodded like wheat again. I turned to Mark and Lydia so I wouldn't have to say this later in the kitchen. I won't sign a durable power of attorney for you, I said. I won't nominate you as guardians. The trust is signed. The deed is recorded. Mary has logs. The voicemail exists, and now there's an affidavit with a seal. If you want to help, there's a shovel with your name on it in January and a steering wheel with your name on it when the roads are ice. Mark's shoulders sagged like a man setting down a misjudged load. Can we bring Evan by Thursday, he asked. He wants to build the Jeep again. Thursday, 3:30, I said. We'll build it with the right number of wheels this time. Cake, he tried soft. Peels first, I said. Cake after. The Q&A line formed people with folders and questions and faces that said they'd been waiting for permission to draw a line. Mary waved me toward the vault. Let's put that affidavit where it belongs, she said. We walked past the posters, past Mr. Klein's stamp, into the cool room where brass boxes sit like calm soldiers. We opened B-17 and slid the sleeve in beside the deed copy and the trust certification and the thumb drive labeled Lydia, 3:22 p.m. The lid slid shut with a simple sound. I liked a promise, not a threat. Back in the lobby, Bev from Miller's stuck her head in the door with a foil-tinted pie. "Banana cream for Mary," she said, then saw half the neighborhood and laughed like she'd walked into a church social. She parked the pie by the coffee and, without asking permission, told the room, "Listen to the lady in the polo, and to your gut." "A notary stamp isn't a magic wand," asked Mr. Klein. Mr. Klein touched his stamp and nodded like someone had finally said his job out loud. We said goodbyes the plain way. The sheriff's liaison shook my hand like a colleague. "You'd be surprised how far a saved voicemail and a clean timeline go," she said. "I used to fix machines," I told her. "They behave when you tighten the right bolts." Outside, the lakeshore sign hummed. Across the street, the Jeep plant horn whooped the evening shift. Mark and Lydia didn't rush to the car. They stood with me and Pastor Jim on the sidewalk like regular people. Lydia looked at the brochure, then at me. "I was scared," she said, finally landing the true sentence. "Scared makes bad bosses," I said. "It can make good students." We split there not like a movie where everyone hugs at once, but like a Tuesday where adults go fix what belongs to them. Pastor Jim tapped his spiral and smiled small. "Truth behaved," he said. "It does better in company," I said. At home, I clicked on the porch light and let it wash the steps. I sat and wrote what mattered in block letters, 541 dates. 5:45 voicemail. 5:51 affidavit stamped, B-17 updated. I drew a little square around stamped and closed the pad. Inside, the house settled like an old dog, no drama, just presence. I made tea, not coffee, because my day didn't need more push. The phone was quiet. The locks were where they should be. The light on the porch did its small job, steady as a heartbeat learning itself. Tomorrow had room to be ordinary again. Wednesday at 8:12 a.m., my phone rang with a number I didn't know. "Lucas County Probate Court," a steady voice said. "Emergency petition for temporary guardianship regarding you, Mr. Whitaker. Hearing at 9:30 a.m., courtroom 2B. "Thank you," I said, like she'd offered pancakes and called Gonzalez. "Good," he said. "Emergency means fast, not automatic. Bring your folder. Steps at 9:10. The courthouse is 2 blocks from the barber with the spinning pole. I got there early enough to watch a city worker sprinkle salt from a coffee can on the front steps for no reason other than habit. At 9:08, Gonzalez arrived with a slim briefcase and a shirt pressed by someone who believes in corners. At 9:11, Pastor Jim walked up with his spiral notebook. "Presents," he said, tapping it. We rode the elevator with a man in a U.S. Steel cap and a woman quieting a toddler. Courtroom 2B holds 2 rows of wooden benches that still remember smoke from a long time ago. The county seal hangs over the judge's desk. There's no drama, just a digital clock and a microphone that makes people sound more certain than they feel. Mark and Lydia came in at 9:22. She carried the same navy folder corners, perfect. Mark looked like he'd slept on the wrong thoughts. At 9:24, Mary Ellis slipped into the back row with a file. The sheriff's community liaison from Fraud Night stood along the wall. "Not here for us, just present the way weather is present." At 9:31, the bailiff called our case. In the matter of a petition for guardianship of the person in estate of Mr. Harold Whitaker. The judge, gray hair, steady eyes, looked down at his pad. Appearances. Gonzalez stated our names. Lydia added, "We're just trying to help." The judge nodded, wrote something small, and looked at me. "Mr. Whitaker, do you know where you are?" "Probate Court, Lucas County," I said. "Wednesday, 31 a.m. "Why are you here?" "My daughter-in-law filed an emergency guardianship," I said. "They want me to sign control." I declined. The judge turned to Lydia. "Basis?" "He forgets passwords," she said. "He gets confused with bills, scammers. We have a durable power of attorney." Gonzalez raised a hand. "If it please the court, there is no executed power of attorney. There is an unsigned form. Mr. Whitaker recorded a transfer on death deed to a revocable trust. He is the sole trustee. We have the trust certification and certified deed." "Let's do this clean," the judge said. "Mr. Whitaker." "Dates and times," I said, and handed the clerk my notarized affidavit from last night. Mr. Klein's raised seal caught the light. June 10, 4:06 p.m. Text to add a device on my credit union profile while I was at the VA pharmacy. June 11, 2:41 a.m. Failed micro deposit to add a bill pay recipient. Last Thursday, 7:42 p.m. Bluetooth caught my daughter-in-law saying, "When he's gone, everything falls to us, so why wait? Push him to sign now." We played her 3:22 p.m. voicemail at fraud night yesterday at 5:45 p.m. Mary's logs match. The sheriff's liaison was present. Mary stepped forward when asked. Mary Ellis Lakeshore Credit Union, she said. Our logs show those entries. We've placed in-branch only on Mr. Whitaker's profile and a verbal password. I brought certified statements. She handed the file to the clerk. The judge looked at the sheriff's liaison. She lifted 2 fingers. I was there, she said. Voicemail played. Affidavit stamped at 5:51 p.m. Play the recording, the judge said. I pressed the screen. Lydia's voice filled the room. Hey, did you get the text code? Just add your dad's second number so Mary won't call. Do it before 5. She leaves at 8, but she stops looking after 5. The room waited for the echo to settle. Monsieur's last name? Is that your voice? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor, she said. But it's out of context. She stopped. The sentence had nowhere safe to land. The judge looked at Mark. Sir, Mark swallowed. We were scared, he said. We bought a second car. The boat. We thought if we could help with Dad's bills, we could catch up. We pushed. We shouldn't have. The judge leaned back. Here's what this court knows at 9:49 a.m., he said. Mr. Whitaker knows the day, the place, the purpose, and the people. He froze credit, added 2-factor placed bank restrictions, signed a trust, recorded a deed, created a safe deposit chain, and brought witnesses and logs. He speaks in dates, not accusations. That is not incapacity. That is governance. He tapped the Navy folder Lydia held. And this, he said, is how families lose each other, rushing signatures under the flag of help. He turned to the clerk. Emergency petition denied. No temporary orders. No guardianship. Then to Mary, thank you for showing up. To the liaison, thank you for community work. To Gonzalez, make sure your client leaves with stamped copies. He clicked his mic off, then, like a neighbor at a fence, said to me, You're doing it right. Keep your porch light on. Not for people with folders, for people with hands. Mic back on one more thing for the room, he said. A notary stamp is not a wand. It confirms identity and willingness. It does not bless intent. If you love someone, you can love them tomorrow. Courts rarely reward urgency dressed as care. The bailiff called the next case. Paper noises, shoes on tile. A draft of real air moved through us. On the steps at 10:02, Mary handed me a manila envelope, certified copies, and a napkin-wrapped triangle of banana cream. For later, she said. Is dessert admissible? I asked. In every decent court, she said, and squeezed my elbow. Lydia stood 2 stairs up the Navy folder, clutched like a bad map. She didn't look angry now, just small the way people look when their plan met daylight. I was wrong, she said, voice not loud and not small. You were scared, I said. Scared is a bad boss. It can be a good teacher. Mark nodded. We're going to consumer credit counseling, he said. Thursday 9. We'll fix our math with our own pencils. He took a breath that sounded like a first one after a cough. Dad, can we bring Evan tomorrow? No papers. He wants to build the Jeep right this time. Thursday 3:30, I said. Peels first, cake after. We split the way regular people split on a Wednesday, to jobs, to calls, to repairs. Pastor Jim closed his notebook. Presence, he said. Company helps truth behave, I said. I drove home with the window cracked. The Jeep plant siren whooped the 10 o'clock break. On my street, the new locking mailbox sat square. I turned the porch light on at 10:19, even though the sun had the whole job covered. A mail truck rattled by and didn't stop. There were no forms to snatch, no plans to sneak. Inside, I set Mary's envelope on the counter, unwrapped the pie, and took one small forkful like a man honoring witnesses. Then I opened my yellow pad and wrote clean. 8:12 probate call. 9:31 2B hearing. 9:49 petition denied. This is governance. Judge notary stamp isn't a wand. 10:02 stairs copies pie. Porch light on. Under that, for anyone who might someday read my notes without me to explain them, I added one more line in block letters. Care is with. Control is over. I set my pen down. The house made its ordinary sounds, fridge hum, clock tick, distant mower. No alarms, no whispers through a truck speaker. Just daylight doing what daylight does, making the edges plain. Thursday started at 8:02 a.m. with a text from Mark. We're at Consumer Credit Counseling on Monroe. 9:00 a.m. appointment. We'll update you. I replied, proud of you. Ask for a written plan. No new loans. At 8:37, he sent a photo of a clipboard and a coffee in a styrofoam cup. I saved it. People do better when their own handwriting is on the fix. At 9:54 a.m., he called from the sidewalk. Budget in 90 days, he said. Boat goes up for sale Saturday. Second car gets listed after we pay off the title. They want me to shred store cards. Lydia's mad at the interest rate, not at you. It sounded like honesty clearing its throat. At 3:30, I said, bring Evan. We'll build the Jeep with the right number of wheels. I spent late morning putting my house in order, the way only a quiet kitchen lets you do. I typed a one-page sheet and taped it to the fridge with the Jeep picnic magnet. House rules read out loud. No legal papers at my table. Tomorrow rule, if it needs a signature, it can wait a day. Money talks happen on speakerphone with a third person present, Mary Pastor or Gonzalez. If you want to help, ask for tasks, rides, ladders, snow shovels, not access passwords, cards, codes. If you are scared, say I am scared. We fix scared with plans, not paperwork. Care is with, control is over. At 11:15, I walked to the garage and slid a trash bag over the old file cabinet. I kept what mattered: trust certification as certified deed bank logs, the notarized affidavit phone carrier, PIN receipt, the safe deposit key on the brass tag that says do not duplicate. The rest expired statements, old warranties went in a banker's box for the shred truck on Saturday, out behind Lake Shore. Mary called at 12:02 p.m. Quick thing, Mr. Whitaker. Fraud night signups doubled. 3 folks asked us to add in-branch only notes this morning, and Bev sent a pie with a sticky note that says, for the lady who makes banks safer. Good, I said. People behave better in daylight. At 1:30 p.m., I drove to the VA clinic to pick up a refill. On the bulletin board by the pharmacy window, a flyer read, Healthcare Proxy versus Power of Attorney in letters big enough for tired eyes. A volunteer in a red vest said, we can help name a clinic advocate for emergencies only. I booked that for next week, limited, specific, not a blank check, because medical help is different from letting someone live in your wallet. They came at 3:31 p.m. Evan ran in first, backpack thumping. 6 wheels, he announced like an inventor. We built the Jeep slow and correct, 4 wheels that click tight. He flipped the porch switch twice. That light means home, he said, repeating me back to me like the truth had stuck. Peels first, I said, sliding a plate of apple slices across. Cake after. Mark stood in the doorway, empty-handed, which is how grown men should show up when they don't know the next right thing yet. Lydia stood on the step, hands in her pockets, navy folder, conspicuously absent. She looked at the fridge, read the rules, and lowered her eyes on number 2 like it had been written for her mouth. I was scared, she said, not looking at me. Scared of bills, of looking dumb, of not being able to fix what I broke. She paused. I'm making the 9 Assure class at the credit place next week. They said we need 2 signatures to sell the boat. I asked how to find a title. Good question, I said. Questions beat plans, whispered through a truck speaker. We took a short walk at 4:05 p.m., down to the corner and back. I pointed at practical things which downspout floods when the maple gets overgrown, where the sidewalk heaves in January, which neighbor has a ladder he'll lend if you return it the same day. I gave Mark the number for the snow removal kid from church, and Lydia the day I changed smoke detector batteries every October. They wrote it down, pens on paper, calm, anxious hands. At 5:12 p.m., Evan asked if he could ring Mary's bell. I laughed and said, that's for the bank. Tonight we ring Bev's bell instead. We walked to Miller's Diner for grilled cheese and soup. Bev leaned over the counter and tapped the rules photo Mark had on his phone. Good list, she said. Add, if you have to whisper, it's the wrong room. I wrote that under number 5. On the way home, we passed Lake Shore. The lobby lights were off, but I could see the sandwich board through the glass. Fraud prevention night, thank you. Mr. Klein had left his notary stamp poster up with a handwritten line in block letters. A stamp is not a wand. Back on the porch at 6:27 p.m., we sat the way exhausted families sit when they don't have to fight the air anymore. Evan lined up the Jeep wheels on the step and declared the porch a car lot. He asked if we could leave the light on. It helps people see the bumps, he said, staring at the concrete where the paint flakes. Exactly, I said. It doesn't move the bumps. It lets you place your feet. At 7:03 p.m., Mark cleared his throat. We're listing the boat Saturday morning at 9:00, he said. The counselor will sit with us to set the price so we don't lie to ourselves. The second car goes next. We told our small group at church to ask how it's going every week. Feels embarrassing. Feels like the right kind of embarrassing. Accountability is cheaper than court, I said. Cheaper than trust you can't buy back. Lydia looked at the safe deposit key on my ring when I reached for my mug. B17, she said quietly. We won't ask for keys. If you need a ride, we'll ride. If you need the ladder, we'll bring the ladder. If you want to be left alone, we'll leave you alone. That's care, I said, not control. We didn't rehash the voicemail. The court had already said the lines out loud, and sometimes the best repair is to stop touching a healed cut. We talked about practical things instead. The garage shelf that needs a brace, the VA proxy appointment next week, the county shred truck on Saturday behind Lake Shore from 10:00 to noon. They left at 7:41 p.m. with the last 2 slices of cake wrapped in wax paper and the Lego Jeep tucked into Evan's backpack like a trophy. At the door, Mark shook my hand the way grown sons do when they remember they are still allowed to be sons. Lydia hugged stiff at first, then not stiff. After they drove off, I sat with my notebook and wrote the day in clean lines. 900 budget plan. Boatless set 900. 331 four-wheel Jeep. 5 rules on fridge. Bev's addendum. If you have to whisper, it's the wrong room. Porch on. Then I wrote a note to anyone listening, neighbors, friends, strangers who might hear this voice in a late-night kitchen. If you're 60 or 80 or anywhere in that sturdy stretch and pressure shows up with a pen, make it earn daylight. Freeze your credit. Add 2-factor. Put a verbal password on your bank profile and an in-branch only note. Choose a trusted contact who is steady with numbers or with backbone. Open a small safe deposit box and keep 1 clean page in it that says who you are, where your papers are, and who to call. Save voicemails. Write the dates. Ask a third person to sit in. And put your rules on the fridge where even scared people can read them. Leave your porch light on, not as a flare for rescue, but as a promise to yourself this house is governed. Help is welcome. Urgency is not. When you do that, the right people find their way up your steps, and the wrong plans decide to stay in the dark. Inside, the clock kept its good tick. The fridge hummed. The mailbox held nothing someone else needed. I poured a small tea and stood in the doorway a minute longer than necessary, letting the porch light paint the concrete in a clean rectangle. Care is with, control is over. They whispered about my end. I counted the days, kept the papers, and set the terms. Then I handed them their ending instead.